Hello, good morning, afternoon, evening. I don't know what time it is you're watching, but welcome to month one of your first BYOB input. Hopefully you've caught up with the introduction and a wee bit more familiar with what to expect. So, on to the first month's content for BYOB. Now, you might have came to this month by your email reminder, or you might have just logged on. What I would say is, if the email reminder has came in and you've clicked into the link, really just pause for a moment and ask yourself, is this the time that I can spend on me, on this kind of stress reduction journey? So have you got that 15 or 20 minutes right now, or can you carve it out? So if it's not convenient right now, have a wee look at your diary for this week. Have a look at where you've got some space and set it as a time. And the reason I say that is, I think what we all are guilty of is prioritising work, family, friends, other responsibilities other than ourselves. So what I would invite you to do is treat this time as an appointment, as a commitment to yourself. So if right now isn't okay, that's fine, but make that commitment into your diary just now. Set aside, half an hour max, to work through some of the content that you're going to be exposed to over this month. Now it's really up to you how you work through it. It's set out in kind of modules, so that you can do it in one go, or you can break it down and have a look at one and then come back. So it's really flexible. It'll always be there available to you, so you can work at your own pace. But what I would really encourage you at this point is to carve out that time for you. So a time where there'll be no interruptions, a time where, your phone won't go, the kids won't bug you, switch your email off, so that you can really just focus on yourself. And I know that can be really hard to find, and we can, prioritise 100,000 things in front of ourselves. So this is going to be your first task and your first challenge. Carve out that time for yourself to work through these tools BYOB is going to offer you. So pause there if that's where you're at. If not, if this is a good time, let's get cracking. So I think I touched upon this a little bit in the introduction. And as we go through this, I think this is a really important message to hear, is that we are all human, but we're all different, and we've all been exposed to different things in life, and different situations and experiences, and that's why some people look like they can cope with stress really well, and some people look like they can't. So we're not all in the same boat, but we are in the same storm. But some of us are, in a yacht, sailing through life, having a peachy time, and some of us are, in boats with holes in them. So I guess like the point of that really is, don't judge yourself. If you are struggling and having a hard time with whatever it is in life, and the stress levels have kind of came to a head, that's okay. That's okay, because that's part of being human, and it's all right to acknowledge that in yourself as well, because that's how you get better, and that's how things improve. And I'd also offer that to the way we view others in the world, because we're not all the same, and we're not always maybe as compassionate and understanding as to what's going on for the next person. So I'd kind of guide you to think about, where you're at, what kind of boat you're in, and then maybe when you look at somebody else whose maybe behaviour reflects what we would look at and think was quite high stress levels, is maybe what's going on for them, what kind of boat are they sailing in as well. So that helps you offer things, rather than being pissed off with people, it helps you look at things from a more compassionate angle. So month one, let's jump in. We did the temperature check in the introduction. You might have just come straight on from here to there, so this might not have changed, but if you've waited for a period of time to come in, then it's worthwhile doing your temperature check again. So, that is, where are you at? So, as I said again, you might go through BYOB, and at this point in your life, stress levels are totally manageable and you feel great. Fantastic, because you'll learn loads of tools and resources should you need them going forward. But if you are experiencing any kind of difficulty managing stress, and you feel that, either you're in that kind of high red alert stress state, or even further down, all of these tools are going to be useful and help you manage that stress going forward. So I always invite you to try and check in with yourself. here in terms of what that number is, so 0 to 100. And the goal will always be for trying to reduce that so that you can manage your stress so that it doesn't feel distressing to you. So take a wee minute, hit the pause button if you want, and just have a wee moment to think about where your stress levels are at. And I'm actually going to share a wee story with you. So BYOB was meant to launch a wee while ago, and I was stressed. Let's say that. So I'm not immune to stress because I teach this. I know the tools and resources. I've went from being a highly anxious, stressed person to being really very much in control of that. But whilst I was developing BYOB, I was so um, I felt the pressure of almost like the world on me because I thought, oh God, there's so many people that need these tools and resources, and there's such a lack of funding, and people really need to have these tools, especially just now, to help them navigate. So I put this self pressure on me to deliver BYOB within this really tight time frame. And as I was starting to write the content for the first week, the first month, I remember sitting at my desk and I had this sensation of, I felt like my head was going to pop off my body. That's the only way I can describe it. And I was like, hold on, Nicola, this is crazy. Like, what are you doing? Like, that is not congruent to what you're talking about. You can't sit and talk about stress whilst being so stressed that that doesn't match up. So take some of your own guidance here. So listen, I'm not immune to stress, and it's part of, again, life, and how we go and navigate through life. And we learn the tools, but also what was important to me was, well, we also have to use them. So we can learn them and put them in our toolbox, but they'll get rusty if we don't pull them out every now and again. So for me, that was, again, a really great moment of clarity to kind of stand and step back. So a lot of that stress was self-caused because I was creating the pressure, and really, what could I do about that? So I delayed the launch. Nobody had any expectation other than me. So I delayed that launch to take a wee bit more time to develop the content, but also take care of myself first and foremost. So that's what I've done. I feel much better for it. And I wanted to share that because that was a really real moment in developing BYOB, where the person who's talking about how to manage your stress had the old moment of feeling like their head was going to pop off their body. So I thought I would share that with you. So let's talk a wee bit about when it gets tough, when stress is enough. So what actually happens physiologically? There is a whole kind of biological happening in your body. So the external environment creates a reaction to the internal environment. So I'm talking about the outside world to the inside world, what's happening inside of you. So you'll probably have heard of fight or flight before, and basically what that is a kind of it's a part of our brain that is really from the beginning of humanity, and it was developed to keep us safe. It was a survival button, if you like. So when there was a sense of danger, this little bit of our brain is triggered, and it sends our body into a state where we can either run away or we can fight whatever the danger is. The issue in today's world is that the amygdala is activated, this fight or flight response is activated, and the danger isn't really real. So, there isn't a tiger chasing you down the road, but your body's responding as if there is a tiger running down the road after you. So the feeling of, immense fear, dread, just that fear for life essentially is very, very real. It is happening to you. You're not mad, but it's reacting to an environment that doesn't serve it because you're not actually in danger. So that is when the kind of stress it kind of tips over the edge where that fight or flight is not responding to things that are necessarily dangerous. It's kind of constantly scanning the environment because it thinks there is danger ahead. So if you feel perhaps that fight or flight response, so that might feel like your heart beating quickly, feeling kind of sweaty hands, or just not feeling like yourself, that potentially could be what's going on for you. So if you've ever had a near miss in a car or stepped off the pavement as a car was coming towards you, you'll know exactly the feeling that I'm describing, that fight or flight. That's a perfectly natural response to danger because that's there to keep us safe. It's when we have that response, when there is no real danger, that's the bit that gets tricky, and that's when stress tips into kind of anxiety and anxiety disorders. So it can be really hard to keep this under control because your body's fighting against what's going on in the outside world. So we have to train the mind and we have to train the body that actually the stress is the stress, but the danger is not there. So there's lots of different things that we can do about that. I hope that makes sense. There's loads and loads of science behind anxiety and stress, and I'm trying to keep this as top level as possible. I can geek out and all this stuff, but I know that's not everybody's cup of tea. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is I'm trying to normalise how you might be feeling. Lots of people go through when they're in high, long, extended periods of stress. Lots of people tip into an anxiety and an anxiety disorders. And that is just the body's response to long-term stress, essentially. So there's lots of stuff going on. But I think what's important to say that not all stress is bad, right? So we are equipped to cope with stress. We are equipped to actually sometimes thrive within stress. So if you think about if you have set a goal, something that you kind of want to achieve, there might be a bit of stress in that, but that helps kind of motivate you get to the end. So if you're maybe sitting an exam, for example, or a driving test, I remember sitting my driving test and feeling quite stressed. That kind of peak performance, if you look at the kind of arc here, so the green is healthy tension, a bit of stress, a bit of pressure. So you might have a deadline, for example, or you might have like month end targets to achieve. So there can be a healthy tension, but it's when it sort of goes past that peak and into an imbalance where there is now too much stress and not enough performance. And that's the human part of you, right? So we have a point where we don't peak perform anymore. We become inefficient because we are too stressed. So I think that's why I'm so passionate about this, and I wonder why employers don't always necessarily recognise that if you get in front of this stuff and you treat your staff, with a level of, it's not just all about bombarding people with work and pressure, because you don't get the best out of people when you bombard them with work and pressure over a long period of time. People need to be able to have the satisfaction of completing work, but also have the satisfaction of the reward of completing that work, which might be some downtime. And then the very kind of tail end of this is breakdown. So that is when stress takes you to burnout, essentially. So you're unable to perform. So you might find if you're in that kind of imbalance or breakdown stage, that you jump about loads of tasks, you're unable to kind of focus on anything because your brain is just essentially fried. It's not able to kind of think a thought all the way through. So that is again, I use the traffic light system and a lot of things that I talk about, the green, amber, red. When you're hitting the amber zone, that is like your call to action to yourself to say, right, you know what, I'm going to have a wee look at what I can do here. And we're going to take you through how you look at that and how you can really support yourself when you get into an amber zone, and even when you notice when the green zone's teetering into the amber zone. So yeah, look, it's really important. What you might notice when you start to go for that green to amber zone, dead quick things to pick up on are sleep disturbance. That's usually probably the first thing that people notice, is that they either can't get to sleep or they get to sleep and they can't stay asleep, so they wake up multiple times through the evening and their head feels quite busy. Forgetting about important tasks because the brain is thinking about lots of different things, just feeling a bit irritable, not just feeling a bit irritable, feeling really irritable. So for everybody, that tipping point is different because we all start at a different point. And I think, from a kind of equality and equity point of view, we have to recognise that we're not all playing we're not all sailing in the same ship, but we're not all playing with the same abilities, because some people have had a lot of stress over a longer period of time. So that one thing, that saying, the straw that broke the camel's back, that's essentially, when you look at that kind of stress level, that's what happens. So we will look at, for example, my traffic light kind of system again, but this is a stress continuum, and it's kind of been adapted to show you stages of stress. And I just wanted to give some examples here, so that maybe you could recognise how stress evolves and how it gets harder to cope with in life. So green, I'm ready, I'm exploring possibilities, resources, I've got a sense of mission, I'm realistic and moving forward, supportive, creative, outward focused, motivated, aware and able to plan solutions, kindness to self and others, all in this together, feeling grateful. So really in a kind of positive mindset of moving forward, being progressive, getting the job done. Into the yellow before we teeter into the amber, but starting to feel a level of discomfort, so that turn the pressure up a wee bit, feel a wee bit less tolerant, start to take what we call fear-based action. So starting to catastrophize perhaps in your mind about what the outcomes might be, but particularly around things like uncertainty. So I know, for example, just now there could be a lot of uncertainty around your job, around the future, around finances. So even though there is no fact to that, there is a general sense of that. So that might be, starting to filter into your mindset and starting to filter into your thought processes. Could be starting to feel tired and weary. Less of that kind of team spirit. I just need to get my job done. Creativity really takes an absolute dip when stress levels are up. It's the first thing to go. And again, like less sleep and starting to notice things like, my body feels a wee bit sore, and I know that happens as I get a wee bit older, the body does start to get a wee bit sore. But in all seriousness, when you're stressed, like, so for example, I carry my stress here in my neck and in my shoulders. So in the introduction, you did a progressive muscle relaxation. I would encourage you to be doing that 2 or 3 times a day. I certainly spend lots of time on shoulder work because I think because I'm working at a desk most of the time, I notice when I am stressed or tense, I really feel that in my shoulders, and when I release it, it's like, oh my god, that's so good. So it's just about becoming aware of maybe what is going on here. So if you don't feel resourced and you don't feel in that green level, then there's things that we need to start looking at. How do we cope with that? And then we go into amber, then we're starting to look at, I'm actually going to put that on the big screen because I just realised how wee it is. Kind of starting to withdraw a wee bit, so that increase of the physical symptoms as I was talking about, but that might also start to feel like health issues as well. So you might start to feel kind of run down, colds, flus, might start to feel the physical parts of kind of ailments in your body, your kind of hips and joints, withdrawal from colleagues, friends, possible kind of numbness, maladaptive coping strategies, which is, drinking too much, shopping too much, gambling, eating too much. And generally performance starts to decrease, so you're not as productive. So going back to that continuum, that positive productiveness teetering right in. So this is us starting to go into a place where we are no longer going to be as functional as what we were previously. And then right into the red zone. So there's a journey that happens here. You don't just wake up one morning and things are hopeless and you can't sleep and you feel depressed and anxious and you're possibly thinking about harming yourself or suicidal, and not able to function, not feeling part of work, feeling paranoid, getting more and more and more isolated, and panic feels overwhelming, and blaming yourself and others. Now that's the end, that's the kind of tough end of the scale, and that's a reality. Like in my line of work, people arrive at me generally in the red, and it's really quite a shame, because if we really take seriously what's needed, we could all operate from the green point, and it's okay sometimes that we teeter into the kind of yellow zone, maybe even the amber zone every now and again. But if your day to day looks like that kind of pressure has been put on, the stress levels are through the roof, the expectations are unmanageable, And whether they're external or an internal, like I was saying, like that I had placed that pressure on myself, that's what we have to look at. So there's some things we can do stuff about, and there's some things that I guess are out of our control, you know, depending on what your employer is like and what your team is like. We can't control others. What we do have control of is ourselves. So the focus of this will be more on how we manage our stress and how, you know, we learn. Sometimes we need to learn an assertive style of a communication if pressure is being put on from an external point of view in terms of workload, because you are only one person, and it's okay to put your hand up and say, I am only one person, and this is what my workload looked like. How do you prioritise that? And I hear people say that to me, yeah, okay, Nicola. But that's the reality. It's that or your health. So, you know, you have the autonomy here to make a decision. Your health has to matter more than that every day. And when it doesn't matter, that's when you start to develop problems and you start to teeter into this kind of red critical zone. And what that looks like, generally, what we're treating as anxiety and depression. So for me, anxiety and depression have been dealing with things for too long, too much anxiety and too long depression. So it's okay, that wee bit of stress, that sometimes is good, but over a long period of time, there is that continuum and there is that ability to go from that green, amber into red. So I really just wanted to make you aware of, you know, to start getting you thinking about where you're at in terms of your stress levels, humanising that it's all right if you are in the red zone or you're in the amber zone. And what I want to help you identify is what is taking you there, and then what can we do about it. So I think also what's important to recognise is that, I mentioned it earlier, burnout. So again, when people get to me, they're usually in habitual burnout, you know, kind of chronic fatigue, depression, anxiety. But it's important to recognise within yourself, because again, we don't just arrive at burnout. It does kind of happen over a period of time, and you can intervene. It doesn't have to get to burnout. You can intervene and take some different decisions and different choices, essentially. So here we've got the honeymoon phase, no sign of burnout, extremely excited, you know, so you're in that green phase where life is good and you're feeling energetic and creative. And then we might start to look at the kind of first set of stress, the onset of stress. And the first thing that goes is that lack for personal needs. Now, I think this is probably the quickest thing you can notice within yourself. And what that really means is, did you stop going to the gym? Did you stop, you know, the things that you kind of need and like to do? So whether that's, you know, going for a bath, going to the gym, going to a class, going to the cinema, going to the theatre, meeting up with friends. What are your personal needs that kind of bring you joy, happiness, things that make you feel good? They get usually chucked out the window first. So if you've noticed, hang on, I'm not doing that. So for example, when I was talking about my head was going to pop off my body, I hadn't really been engaging with friends as much, but what I had completely let go of is my daily walk. So I do yoga in the morning, I meditate for half an hour, and anybody that knows me, I'm like religious about it. It's the thing that it cured my anxiety, was this kind of self-care program. And then I walk every day, so I like to be out in nature, like hear the birds sing, and just, you know, have fresh air in my face. And even if it's only half an hour, or I try and kind of break it up, totally going. No meditating, no yoga, no walk. So my good stuff that helps keep me sane, keeps me and my stress levels down, like first things to go. So that's the thing to notice for yourself, is what is potentially going on for you here. And then as you go further down, it'll become quite apparent. You'll find it difficult to, you know, kind of either feel compassion for other people, maybe feeling quite agitated with, you know, people in your team or other people that you communicate with, and being able to solve problems that, you know, mountains out of molehills. You might find that yourself. You might notice that other people in your team and kind of explode and make things, small things into big things. And then burnout, social isolation, pessimistic, anxious, having physical symptoms. So, like, this is why this stuff is so important, and this is, why I'm doing BYOB, because we don't talk about it enough. We're like robots almost, like, let's get up and go on with it, and it's kind of not good enough, right? So we need to look after ourselves. And I get the impression that we've got the people that I've met through this journey, some really kind of progressive people within your field that get it. They get how important it is to get in front of stress in order to have a really good, productive workforce. And then there's other people that just don't, and they don't see, they're working in the silo of, this bit, but they don't necessarily see the importance of getting in front of it. So if you have that kind of environment to work in, then you need to prioritise that. You need to make this your priority. You need to make you your priority and make sure that stress doesn't overcome you. So a wee quick bit on, the difference between stress and anxiety. So I touched on where it can lead in terms of stress, but usually stress is an external, so you could be looking at work, family, money, situations, and then it tends to heighten to a peak and then diminish, right? So that's copable stress, but you still might feel irritable, you might feel angry or resentful, and you might find it difficult making decisions. You might have repetitive thoughts, like stuck in that hamster wheel, and then having sleep issues, eating too much, drinking too much, smoking too much, biting your nails, that kind of thing. And with anxiety, it doesn't usually need what we call an activating factor, but it's internal, so it's an internal process that's happening within your body. It might be that persistent feeling of apprehension, sense of dread in kind of non-threatening situations. Remember what I was talking about earlier, where the tiger isn't actually chasing you down the road, but your body's responding to it like it is. It doesn't really necessarily connect to events or experiences. So all the symptoms of stress, but with the additional difficulties such as panic attacks, possible maybe chest pains, feeling faint, nauseous, breathing difficulties. Either or, neither of them are particularly pleasant, but when you teeter from stress into anxiety, it can be really deeply unpleasant. It can also be quite frightening because it can feel like you're having that sense that you're dying. It can be really quite scary. So remember, you're not going to die of anxiety, right? But it's really important to get in front of your anxiety and get it managed. So anyway, I've babbled on, but I'm really passionate about helping people and helping them manage their stress and get this down. So I want you to just take a wee moment, ponder and reflect, and consider for yourself what feels familiar to you about stress and anxiety. So get a notepad, write it down. I'd get a notepad, right? Let's make this your BYOB stress notebook. There's going to be some stuff that you can do online, but I'm an old school girl. I like to pen and paper. But what feels familiar to you about stress and anxiety, what we've spoke about here, are you in the green zone, are you in the amber zone, are you in the red zone? How long have you been there? What were you less aware of? What have you now become more aware of as we've spoke for the last, 20 odd minutes? And what was totally outside of your awareness? So I'd like to leave it with you just to go away and reflect and ponder. And then once you're ready, if you come on to the next stage, which is understanding your stress, and I've lost you. And yeah, so once you've done that, once you've done this bit, then you can pop on to what is your stress. But if not, if you want to leave it on to the next week, just ponder these kind of questions, then great, do that. Set another alarm in your diary for next week. There should be an email to prompt you and remind you. But if not, set that time away, and thank you for sticking this video out. I know this can feel new and clunky and strange, but your time is really valuable, but so is your health and well-being. So I hope you invest in the time that it takes each kind of week or month for you to really take on some lessons to help you manage your stress. I'm really glad you're here. I'm really glad you're listening, and I really hope this helps you. So until the next time, take good care and speak to you soon. I won't speak to you soon, that's ridiculous. But I'll see you soon. I will be on the next video.